Registered representatives offer securities through Securities America, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Financial advisors offer advisory services through Securities America Advisors, Inc. Forest Hills Financial, Inc. and Securities America are separate entities. This is the Keeping Your Money Show with Jamie Westenbarger and Bart Steindler.
Good morning. Welcome to Keep Your Money Show. Jamie Westenbarger joined as always by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Bart Steindler. Bart, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. It's another $1 million morning.
Indeed it is. I'm kind of working through this froggy voice, so my apologies in advance. And actually, my ears are kind of plugged, so I can't even hear myself that well. So it's a mess.
Nothing's coming out, Jamie.
I know. Right. I'm moving my lips, but you guys can't hear anything.
No,
right?
nothing.
It is June 1st, though, so that's a positive. We have moved into actual summertime months, which means hopefully we'll actually get some summertime weather.
5 months of 2019's in the rearview mirror already?
Indeed, indeed. It's kind of cool as we head into summer, though, because, of course, the grilling guys are on before us. So if you don't listen to that show, man, definitely tune in an hour earlier because those guys cook up some pretty awesome food. So funny story, when the Keeping Your Money Show first started, we were on another radio station, different place across town, and we were on before the grilling guys, and they were on after us. And here we are 10 years later, and they're on before us, and we're on after them. So we just flopped.
Yeah.
On a different station, totally different place. So,
well, you got to keep Keeping Your Money Show so that you can afford to have a nice grill and all the marinades and all the tools so you can have fun cooking out in the summertime.
absolutely.
They go together.
This is the Keeping Your Money Show, where we cut through all the bulls, the booyahs, the bells, whistles, honks, and horns to get you the information that actually helps you move towards retirement. If you miss any part of the show, you can always find it on our website. Just go to keepingyourmoney.com. You can also find it on our podcast partners. Just go to any of those like iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, or Spotify and search for the Keeping Your Money Show. If you want to give us some feedback, maybe it's a comment, a concern, you don't like something Bart said, you love something I said, and you want to make sure we know about it, you're welcome to do so. You can give us a call anytime. 888-98-MONEY is the number, 888-986-6639, or you can send us an email, info, that's info, at keepingyourmoney.com. Got a great show on deck today. We're going to talk about 4 personal finance tips that are pretty common out there that actually might fail you. Is $1 million enough to retire? We'll discuss that. I want to talk a little bit about bonds. Sometimes we think of them as the set it, forget it investment. Some things you want to know about them before you consider them ultra safe. And fintech. We hear about fintech all the time. Talk about some applications, apps for your phone, programs on the computer that may help you become better at managing your finances. All that and more right here on the Keeping Your Money Show. Bart, definitely want to mention the golf outing, as it is now just under 2 months away from happening.
That's going to be, July 25th?
July 25th it is at Thornapple Creek? Thornapple Valley? Why can't I think of the name? Thornapple Creek? Yeah. Thornapple Creek. Huh? Thornapple Point. That's what it is.
There you go.
Good job, Laura. There's all these thorn apples in this darn city.
I know.
Thornapple Point.
It's like Peachtree in Georgia.
Yes. Also commonly referred to as planes, trains, and automobiles. Great course for an outing. We've got all kinds of awesome stuff going on out there with 2 great causes that all the money we raise goes to. Splitting those donations between Kids Food Basket, of course, one of our personal favorites, and a new organization this year, I Understand, which works with mental health here in the West Michigan community. If you want to find out more, you want to sponsor a team, you want to volunteer, you want to donate, lots of opportunities to do that. Just check it out on our website. Go to keepingyourmoney.com, and you will see the information there. Or, of course, give us a call, and we would be happy to give you more info at that time. So we talk a lot of times about, this isn't your father's retirement, and you can't always take advice from things that worked before. They won't necessarily work now. And really, I thought this article really hammered on 4 things that I think we hear a lot of times, but maybe in today's day and age with various different things that are, kind of abnormal. I mean, we have abnormally low interest rates. We have a housing market that's been booming for quite some time now. So sometimes those age-old, adages that we kind of have come to always think of as being 100% always true could probably kind of get you into a pickle to a certain degree if you just followed them without making sure they apply to your situation as well.
I think you have to look at these things that people say and say, okay, does it make sense in today's world? Does it make sense for my world?
Right.
Because you could have one of these adages. For instance, this one says save 10% of your income for retirement. Well, let's say you make $75,000 a year and you're saving 10% for your retirement, or you're making $450,000 a year and you're saving 10% for your retirement. That's a whole different picture.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting. They actually took an example of that and said, okay, say, for example, you start saving at 30, you're earning $35,000 a year. We'll consider you get 2% annual raises, you invest 10%, and you earn 7% on your investments. Pre-retiree, 4% during retirement. You will have saved $440,000 by 62. If you need to replace 90% of your pre-retirement income, and they estimated out your Social Security benefits, you'd actually run out of money by 75.
So I guess that's not going to work in that case.
No, definitely not. They even adjusted up to say, what if you made more money? Maybe you made $60,000. All the same other parts apply. You actually would run out of money sooner if you only saved 10%. So, again, they talk about, well, maybe 15% is better. But the real thing is really sitting down and figuring out, what do you need to actually save? And I think that's probably where the disconnect is. We see on a national news program or on a website, it says do this. And so everyone tries to do that. But the reality is everyone's different. We have lots of different situations in our lives.
Well, yeah. And here's another wrench in this thing. When did you start saving? So maybe you started saving when you were 22 years old and you started saving 15%. But if you start saving when you're 30 years old, your 15% is going to be on the low side. You're going to have to actually bump it up higher.
Yep, absolutely. Next one is 4% rule. Conventional wisdom says if you withdraw 4% of your income from retirement savings during your first year and then increase withdrawals based on inflation each year, you should not run out of money. But research conducted by Morningstar Investment Management in 2013 found that with bond yields below historical averages, that 4% rule only provided a 50% probability of success. In other words, a 50-50 shot. It may work, it may not. Here we are 6 years later, bond yields still very low, interest rates.
But better than they were.
Sure. Interest rates historically low.
Yep.
Market at all-time highs. A lot of reasons that some just squared away definitive number like 4%, not necessarily the right number. Now, something this article does that I again think is wrong is they make fun of or criticize the 4% rule, but then they flip around and they tell you, well, maybe if you just did this, this is the right percentage. Again, I don't think there is a right percentage. Not for everyone.
No.
Everyone's situation is going to be different. I'll give you a perfect example. I got a client who has a terminal illness. It's a longer term terminal illness. But the reality is we don't need to plan for this person to be 95 years old because he's not going to be. His determination of income is much different than someone who comes to us at 60 years old in perfect health and wants to retire. Totally different. Neither one of them, looking at this article, would get any information from this that's actually helpful to them because those random percentages we come up out of thin air are really completely useless.
Right. And the other thing is, how are you going to distribute this money once you get to the point of retirement, and what vehicles are available and what kind of return are they going to get you? Because if there's vehicles available that can get you a higher return without a lot of risk, then you don't need as much money to retire, and then that changes what that percentage of withdrawal is.
Sure.
So,
well, look at 2007. I mean, there were fixed interest rates of 5% plus.
Right.
If you could get a CD that paid you 5%, guess what? Your withdrawal rate could be 5% because you were just drawing interest.
I mean, in the mid 80s, I can recall buying zero coupon bonds that paid over 12%, I think 12 or 13%,
Sure.
So, that changes the equation when you're figuring out, well, what can I afford to withdraw from retirement?
But then, of course, in the 80s, mortgages were 17%.
Right. The flip side of that is that they don't last forever.
Right.
So,
Another common misconception is buying a house increases your net worth. Now, once again, this is such a specific scenario. It's regionalized, number one.
Right.
I would say buying a house in California for $2 million and you put 3% down, that is probably not going to do a lot for your net worth situation. People who bought homes in 2008 would argue that this is definitely not true. They're probably still trying to climb out from if they managed to even hold on to the house in the first place. If people are putting minimal down payments down on houses that have appreciated 100% in the last 10 years, one would question if that really makes sense. And I think too often, we were talking about this earlier, Bart, too often we don't do the rent versus own comparison. Right. Sometimes it just makes more sense to rent.
Yeah, yep. And I think a lot of time, I had a conversation with a couple in their early 30s last weekend, and it was in a large city, and they were looking at buying a home. And I think they were looking back to what happened in their parents' lifetimes.
Sure.
And in their parents' lifetimes, housing appreciated a great deal.
Absolutely.
And it was not uncommon to buy a house, hang on to it for 3 or 4 years, and sell it for $50,000 to $100,000 more than you bought it for. And that just doesn't happen anymore. The other thing is that the taxes are higher, and if you're paying higher taxes, then that growth that you're going to get, because you could be taking that tax money and having it invested elsewhere, it's a little bit of a false sense of a growth.
Well, and nowadays there's so many more association fees, and when my parents bought their first house, in the 70s, there were no association fees. There were there was none of that, and you start kind of adding all that in. And I think that also ties into the next one is kind of a great example. Paying down debt should always be a priority. Now, I know there's a very famous person who that's his only priority, but the reality is we live in a different world today. We were just talking about what interest rates were in the 80s. If you had a mortgage at 16%, yeah, you better believe paying that off as soon as you possibly could was a definite priority of yours. Many people are carrying mortgages at under 4% right now.
Right.
Not nearly the priority it was. If you think you can put your money somewhere that will do better than the interest rate you're paying, and I would even say that includes student loans. Many student loans have been refinanced at 4% or less. If you're getting a low interest rate, why would you take extra cash you have and apply it to that when you could be applying it somewhere else and potentially doing better than that long term? Not saying everyone should do that, because everyone shouldn't do anything. But also it shouldn't just be an absolute rule that we just attack debt no matter where it is, what kind of debt it is, or what interest rate we're paying on it.
I've seen this happen time and time again where somebody accelerates their house payments to get their home paid off, and then later on they have a need to access that money, and they find out that it's either it's very difficult to get that money back from the bank.
Sure.
So yeah, you can get a home equity loan, but the interest rates may be very high on it, probably double what you had on your mortgage.
Oh yeah.
And the other thing
definitely
is,
less favorable terms.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you let's say you wanted to invest in a business, or you wanted to buy a second home or something that required a large amount of money, this money that you've all paid back from the bank, you're going to have to go through a lot of hoops to get the bank to refinance, to put that money into another venture. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's not a slam dunk. 30 years ago, when I've owned a couple different businesses and things like that, I've been able to go to the bank, and the guy knew me, and I had a conversation, and then
it doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't happen that way anymore. It's a very difficult process.
In all likelihood, when you go back to the bank you were just at 3 months ago, nobody that works there worked there 3 months ago, so you're starting from scratch all over again anyways.
Yeah.
They up and moved to Mexico City or something. So, all right, coming up, we're going to talk about is $1 million enough to retire right here on the Keeping Your Money Show.
There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to planning your future. Jamie, Bart, and all of the advisors at the Keeping Your Money Show understand that your financial goals are unique and your needs are going to change at varying stages of your life. Our team of advisors can help you tailor a financial plan that meets your unique needs. Call us today at 1-888-98-MONEY or visit keepingyourmoney.com to schedule your free initial consultation.